So Gabe, I want to be respectful, and I don't want to butcher your last name. So can you help me out here?
Dominocello.
Dominocello. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Awesome. Well, cool. Gabe, it's great to meet you. I appreciate you coming on and chat with me, and I'm really looking forward to learn more about Umbra and synthetic aperture radar. But more importantly, I like to learn about you and understand, kind of how you got into this. When you were growing up, were you like, oh man, one day I want to launch SAR satellites? Like how did you get into this crazy type of industry?
I don't think that launching star satellites was anyone's childhood dream. And as somebody who has launched many, I would not wish it on my worst enemy. It is very, very difficult. My background is look, I'm just a normal guy, and my business partner, my co-founder, who's the CEO of Umbra, um, is a bona fide genius. So,
Mm,
growing up, I think that if I had a company before, but if you start a company with the smartest person it's probably a good decision. And
right.
that's what I did, and it has worked out quite well, I think.
Oh, very cool, very cool. So you talked about like how difficult it is. So I wonder if you could maybe give us an idea of when you say that you had some very strong emotion there. Like what made it so difficult? And I can only imagine. I'm sure there's a million things. What would be a couple of things that stood out?
I think the thing is like what makes it easy. And there's nothing easy about inventing a
Okay.
satellite, building it, raising money for it, launching it. Um, and then getting the products to market and then fighting in the market over our data is very, very complex. So it's
Hmm.
really easy for people to not totally understand it. Um, but I mean, there's not one difficult thing about entrepreneurship. Like being an entrepreneur, I tell people not to do it all the time.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it is, we started this business 9 years ago. We're in our ninth year, and a lot of the people who started very similar businesses at the same time, their companies no longer exist. They're doing something else.
Hmm.
Um, it's been very sad to see, and we're very fortunate that we invented something that is unique enough that allows us to thrive. But it is not it is not the case for everybody.
So you mentioned some of the challenges in the market, and I do want to ask you about those. But you also mentioned, inventing a satellite. So
Yeah.
that to me sounds very interesting.
Not fun.
You said not fun, but how do you even begin? Like you're just like in, you say you have the CEO is super smart. Like, do you, how does this start? Like, oh, let's launch a satellite. Like where does this idea come from? Where where does it go from concept into we're going to design this thing? How are you funding this type of project? Like how does that spark begin?
Well, so my co-founder spent 10 years working in industry. So he was originally at
Hmm.
Orbital
Okay.
Sciences, and which became Orbital ATK, which then became Northrop Grumman Innovations. Um, so he had a really good sense of the architecture and what needed to be built. And if you don't have that level of insight, you're really not going to be able to build the right thing. So
Mm.
you see a lot of like people first year out of college or something and like, I'm going to start a satellite business.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you don't understand the challenges or even really what to build. Um,
Mm.
Whereas David had insights on like, I think this would be really valuable if we did it in this way. But we also have to invent something that doesn't exist, because like what already exists is there. So you need to
Hmm.
invent something that is much, much better, um, in order to have commercial traction or traction with the government.
So what was it about SAR then? Like why SAR and not, you know,
Yeah.
hyperspectral or some other, infrared or whatever sensor you can think of, gravity, whatever, the mass and people love that. But like, why was synthetic aperture radar the choice for Umbra?
David had a lot of expertise in RF, but I think that we looked at the market, and the main thing that we observed was that at the time, SpaceX was really coming into its own. They were doing, they maybe had not done a rideshare yet, but they were getting close. And the launch costs had come down significantly, and everyone was just trying to go smaller. And if you wanted to produce a product, we've produced 16 centimeter imagery, our next systems can be significantly better. You have to look at the different phenomenologies. So optical is fine. We all have optical sensors in our face. So it's a phenomenology that everyone's really familiar with because we all have eyes. Radar can see through clouds, it can see at night. And as somebody who is looking at this from the outside, it's like, well, if we can make money 24/7, like at night when people can't make money at night, maybe that's more interesting. It gave us far more optionality in generating revenue for something that is very image-like. And that's, we really fell in love with SAR as a concept. There's an ability to like produce value for customers. You just produce a lot of value because SAR on its very own is a perfect measurement. So radar is very precise. And then radar imagery is also very, very precise. So making sure that we had a product that would be very useful and widely useful and easily obtainable, it seemed like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you talk about precision because I have a military background, right? And I could say I grew up, looking at SAR data, analyzing SAR data, and I never thought of it as precise. It was like, we'll use it if we have to, if it's got cloud cover, if there's something we really need to track and understand, and we, for whatever reason are obscured, whatever, we'll pull in the SAR data.
But have you seen?
I find it. What's that? Yes. And I want to get it. I want to get into that. Like, I want to get into that because I'm just saying how I remember this from, like, this is 2000s, the early 2000s and stuff, right? So this is using government-based SAR satellites. Like, my perspective then was, oh man, I don't even want to use that unless we absolutely have to. Maybe you can talk about like where it's at now, why is SAR so useful now? You mentioned cloud cover. I mean, that's a huge thing, but what else about SAR makes it the absolute right option for right now?
Well, I mean, it's a complex phase history. So, I mean, I don't need to bore your audience with physics.
No, bore away. Oh, we got some smart people. They want to hear it. Yeah.
I mean, the beauty of SAR is the phase state. It's the measurement. So it's being able to understand distances. It's being able to understand, like, if you use interferometry, you can see how ground surface is moving, what's happening under the ground. Using vibrometry, you can look at a power line and see if there's power moving through it. There's a lot of beauty in having that precision. And then
wait, you can see power moving through a power line?
You can see the catenary. You can see the catenary in the power line, which generates heat, which makes the power line sag in such a way that you can retain like how much power, or if it's on or off. You can see if you have a generator or like a large fan in an air conditioning unit, you understand through the phase if that is vibrating. Same can be done with like a tractor. It's a really incredible tool if you know how to use it. But for the guy at the gas station, it's like, well, that's just like a black and white picture. And if you're talking about radar sensors from 2000, it's like a really, really sucky black and white picture. If you look at the SAR data now, that's not here.
With a lot of noise. There'd always be like just so much noise, you couldn't tell what was what.
I mean,
Um,
our extended dwell product on our website,
mhm.
umbraspace.com, is like you're getting pretty close to, optical. Like
Yeah,
it's good.
the re-
I'm
the resolution's awesome.
yeah, I like I'm every satellite we launch is much better. So
Hmm.
7 and 8 just went up. We have 9 and 10 going up in I think probably 90 days, maybe less. They're through Vibe. So I mean they're going up soon. And I'm like, I can't believe it. Like it's better than
Mm.
airplane. Like it's because we would do airplane stuff to test. We've seen a lot
Hmm.
of airplane data, which is much closer to the Earth than
Right,
550 kilometers. And
right.
this is way better than anything I've seen on an airplane. It's
So,
impressive.
okay. So you said you have 7 and 8 going up right now.
We have 7, 8 on orbit.
Okay,
It
so you
is
have 8 satellites.
and then we have 2 more going up in the next couple months.
What is that process like for developing a new satellite? I know you say it's hard, but like
It's hard.
where it's very hard. Like where do you start saying, okay, this is this is what we're doing now, but how long does it take to get one, from back of the napkin to, up in space? And like what is that process like for you?
I mean, I could probably say this. I think our longest lead time on parts is
Hmm.
maybe 8 months. But then
Mm.
you have to integrate it and launch it. The key is that you have to just build satellites on the come. Like it's a bet, and
Mm.
you have a good insight from your customers on what they will buy. So, I've been pretty stern in that we're not going to launch satellites unless we can sell the data from them. I don't
Right.
understand a business model where you would launch a huge constellation and then
Hmm.
not be able to sell the data. Seems very, very stupid. But
Yeah.
apparently everyone has done it. So like
Maybe it's just launch now, figure it out later. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean that might be we've never been able to raise money the same way that other people have because
Hmm.
we really have to understand the physics. Why is Umbra better than anyone else, or like understanding that is very difficult. And if you have an MBA and you're like, well, they have X, Y, and Z investor, and Umbra doesn't have that investor from
Hmm.
Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley people know what they're doing.
Oh, I see. There's just an assumption.
Yeah, and I mean, but the proof is in the pudding. I mean, we're
Hmm.
like it's very obvious that we're like the clear financial winner anyway.
So you mentioned a little bit about listening to customer demand, when you're building the satellites. What are the customers saying right now? Like what are the hot items that they care about, and who are? I mean, I could probably take a guess who your main customers are. Who are your main customers then? And I'll throw in another question there, which is the commercial market actually starting to pick up, or is it just smoke and mirrors?
Okay, obviously, governments are our biggest customer.
Hmm.
And it is this. So look at a geospatial intelligence the same that you would any other market,
Hmm.
where the biggest buyers are like large institutions, governments, and then you have
Sure.
other smaller markets. Like so, we have the U.S. government, which we have a very special relationship with, and obviously we're all American. Our dollars are American. Uh,
Hmm.
we have been very, very careful about our cap table and about like can people work
Hmm.
at the company. Our U.S. government relationship is a very special relationship. Then you have allied foreign governments, and allied foreign governments like think Five Eyes,
Hmm.
NATO. Um, again, we have to be very careful. And then you have the commercial market, which is again the largest people in it, which is like oil and gas,
Right.
insurance, critical infrastructure. So those guys have the money to pay. I mean, radar imagery, even ours, which is fairly inexpensive relative to others, with much higher data quality, it's still really expensive. Like
Right.
if you want 3 images a day, it's $1 million a year. Like it's very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people who can do that. But oil and gas, they have pretty razor thin margins. They need to be on the cutting edge of data. And
Mhm.
all these industries, if you're not staying ahead in data, you'll get crushed by your competition. So if you're not
Right.
using radar as part of your, commercial package, your competitors are, and they will destroy your business. It is a matter of time. The free market is the most savage thing
Mhm.
to contend with.
I'll say politics is probably number one. The free market is there.
Okay.
Politics is probably,
The free market will solve all problems, and politics will always get in the way.
Absolutely. That's a good way to put it. What are some of those emerging use cases? Like, are you seeing more commercial buyers, in industries that surprise you, or like, what are some of those things that are popping up? They're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know, Nike wanted to buy SAR imagery. I'm not saying Nike does, but like, are there any things like that that are popping up now that are a little bit surprising?
I think there's always, the trade, like people who are trading commodities and stuff, they're always
Hmm.
doing really cool stuff. That
Right.
is just not obvious. Everyone knows, like, count the cars in all the Walmart parking lots. If there's more cars, there's
Hmm.
more sales and the stock's going to go
Sure.
up. But there's like mid-cap stocks that people are going and looking at, which are like, you would just never guess. Like, oh, we're looking at
Right.
this crypto mine. And I'm like, crypto mine, oh, Jesus. And then I look at this crypto mine, and they're supposed to build this. And if the factory's done sooner, then we'll
Hmm.
know. And like, getting a satellite image is cheaper than having somebody drive out there and look at the production. So I think there's a lot of there's Chicken Man is my favorite example, where the guy, or he's Eggman, dude trade
Eggman. Okay.
commodities, which I did not know existed. And eggs, like,
Huh.
I don't know, a couple of years ago, like, had a huge, like, went up way up, and it's like, Eggman, how much money making? Like, you're buying satellite imagery to look at they look at fences, and radar reflects
Okay.
fences really well. So if you
Hmm.
have like free range chickens, the fences are a certain size, or there's a certain number of coops. And so he could see the egg production based on the amount of coops and the
Hmm.
distance of the fences. And I was like, because he had a really nice watch on. I was like, this 100,000. Like, how are you making like enough money for $100,000 watch doing egg, like, whatever, counting eggs? Is like, oh yeah, we make so much money.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So yeah, if you're
hey,
not getting rich,
everybody eats eggs. There's nobody that's like, oh, eggs are bad. Everybody eats eggs.
and he's like, he's a Midwest guy. He's like, yeah, if you can't make money using information that is like, I don't know what you're doing.
Right. So if you want to get into the egg commodity market, you need to be buying Umbra SAR imagery on a
Free
daily basis.
satellite data as long as you tell me what the trade is.
Oh, whatever the trade is, right? I got these eggs. You want? That's kind of interesting. What you mentioned, you guys are launching some of the newer satellites, and you said you're very excited for those. What about those is exciting? Where are you guys pushing the boundaries with the technology that's leading you to be excited?
Everything is just so, like,
Everything.
it goes, like, we're doing this for 9 years. Like,
Right.
the amount of information that we have learned over the last 9 years is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we launch a new satellite, we learn more. We learn more about our own capabilities and what the team is able to do. And our team is extremely confident. So we can put something in front of them and be like, okay, let's say we have X amount of power, X amount of bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
X amount of our antenna size. Size, weight, power are very important things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what if we made these changes because we could improve the economics significantly because we understand what our customers want more and more with every launch. So it's like if we make our field of regard longer or wider, and we can take more pictures as we fly over a high demand area, like that financial ROI becomes really significant. So you make sometimes small changes. So every single satellite typically has some iteration and then just gets better and better. Like 8 and 9 are way, or 7 and 8 are way better than 4 and 5. And 9 and 10 are going to be way, way better than 6 and 7 or whatever.
Right.
We're just going to get better. So what I mean is like, we want to improve our power aperture by an order of magnitude. Every new version of the satellite.
So it has an increased power, increased
power, increased bandwidth, increased antenna size, just bigger, better, while maintaining our unit economics, which is critical.
The speed. How about the speed of the data transmission? If you're using a better antenna, does that increase the speed? And how much is that?
It's a non-problem.
It's a non-problem.
Yeah,
okay.
We have plenty of ground stations. We take pictures, we downlink them.
Okay, that's interesting. Because it wasn't like that when I was doing imagery analysis.
The optical satellites, the optical imagery size is much larger. So because optical sensors tend to just stay on and just like suck up the light, we have to produce our own light. So we're tasked. So if you need like
I see.
a map of the Middle East, you're not necessarily looking at anything in particular. You just leave it on, you get a whole bunch of data, and then you downlink the data, and it's like constrained. But with SAR, it's like, I need these 25 pictures when you fly over Texas.
Right.
And so it's pretty defined. So we know what is needed. And then we just make sure we have ground stations that can support it.
Well, one obvious huge use case for SAR is just scientific research. You also mentioned that it's kind of cost prohibitive at 3 images a day for a year is $1 million. A lot of times academics don't have access to that type of capital unless they win some giant grant from the federal government or something.
I mean, we're on the $500 million NASA deal.
Okay. Well, maybe you could tell me a little bit about that. What's that deal?
NASA has some contract for like $500 million, which is getting archive data from a whole bunch of providers. Everyone's like almost everyone's on it. But for us, for scientific research and like penguins, walruses, like all the things that people might like, we give a lot of the data away for free. We have an abundance of supply. So our satellites take more pictures than any other satellites in radar. So with an abundance of supply, you can lower prices, which we've done. And then you can also expand the market by providing data for free. We have a program on Twitter where you literally fill out a Google form and we will just give you a free picture. We don't care. So we're not going to do like mission architecture for you, but like if you want a free picture of your house, tweet us. We'll take a picture for you. The first time they saw an emperor penguins like migrate was done with an Umbra picture, and I'm pretty sure they didn't pay for it. I don't think we charged something like that.
So if you want a free Umbra image, I'll put it. How about you give me the link afterwards? We'll throw it in the description on YouTube or whatever. Whatever app you're using. Cool. We'll put that in there. So do you get a lot of interactions from scientists and academics that are interested in using Umbra for different things? And then what are those areas?
Well, I mean, you have like hobbyists who like, there's a lot of people. I'm not huge on the internet, but I do have a Twitter account.
I'm with you.
And like my co-founder is like, why would I put information on the internet? I'm just like, for people to attack.
That's good for that.
I have a Twitter account, and there are hobbyists who take pictures of launch sites, like rocket launch sites, and they use like archive data, or they will give them free tasking for their niche, fun, exciting thing. Or even like Justin Myers does just takes pictures of junkyards. And I'm like, dude, what's the Latin long of that? Let's see what it looks like in SAR. So you really need to be having fun. I mean, we had a series of volcanoes. We were taking pictures of a bunch of volcanoes. And the volcano people loved it. I think that we have to support the ecosystem, and with an abundance of supply, I don't know why we wouldn't.
That's awesome. I'm building I have a new office that I opened up in Starkville, Mississippi, and I'm gonna wrap, like, it's got windows on the outside. I was gonna wrap it in some type of SAR imagery or something like that. I think
Great,
that'd be
do
cool.
it.
So now I'm gonna order something on Umbra. I'm gonna go tweet you a location.
I have
Umbra to capture a cool image of
in my office. So I have, like, if you can see, I have Gigafactory, Aswan Dam, the pyramids. They're
cool,
beautiful works of art. But I would say,
really cool.
The real revolution of Umbra is something very boring, which is our licensing. We use, which I think is a total revolution. Like, we use a Creative Commons license. So for a customer, typically there's really, really constrained licenses where it's like, if you task a satellite, you can't, if you share it with your mom, you get sued. With us, we're like, dude, put it on the internet. It's like, it is like we are licensing it to you, but it's your image. Put it on a coffee cup, wrap your building in it. We're not going to charge you more. We want the data proliferated.
Is that because they don't want you to resell it to somebody else that wants it? Is that the entire reason?
Resell it. We don't need the $500. Like, it's fine.
Right. I didn't know that was the case, that they had these strict. I mean, I know there's definitely restrictions. We work with a lot of imagery companies, but I didn't know you couldn't. Move it around.
I mean, if you go and read the user license agreement for these satellite providers, it was by far.
I won't be doing that, but you can summarize. I don't think I've ever yet read one of those things. User license agreement.
Just be in the dark. Our biggest customer complaint before launching the satellite was the licenses, and we really took it to heart. Like, we were like, we need to give people, like, how do you create value for your customers? You give them data they can actually use. And so our license is something I'm really, really proud of. I mean, look, taking the highest resolution commercial image from space, like all these things, like launching a bunch of satellites, there's a lot of like big wins, but in terms of like actually helping people make money, like if I'm not helping my customer make money, there's no business. Is our license has been really, really pivotal. And I don't know why other people don't adopt it. They should.
Well, and I was even thinking from like a federal government perspective, if the license is too restrictive, let's say the US government buys an image, well, there might be 20 different agencies that need that image, right? And if they don't,
you can't tweet
it. You can't tweet it.
I mean, if there's if there's a tornado, like, why would you not have NOAA task an Umbra image and then put a picture of the damage on the internet?
Right,
like,
and it's just
not allowed with like essentially any other provider.
That's pretty interesting. And they just had those massive tornadoes in Nebraska, so that was
brought it up.
Whew, those things are crazy. So you mentioned some of the challenges in the market as well, like dealing with competitors. Can you maybe talk about the competition in the market, and are you seeing more competition? And then where's the fight at in that market? What I mean is it is it on the licensing agreement? Is it on the pricing, or is it simply getting in with certain customers? Where is that at?
I'd say that there's not. I don't know how our data is better. Like the noise clone signal not the crispness of the data is better. Pricing is better. I don't know that, but the pie is really big. So we're not like fighting. I was talking to a CEO of another radar company.
Mhm.
It's like, dude, what are you winning that we're not? Like, we both win the same contracts.
Right.
We're not really competing. Like, we have this like similar product, but like we both win. So, why wouldn't we want to work together and be positive for our customer?
Mhm.
And so I don't think it's not whatever retail. We're not selling Nikes or something against Adidas.
Right.
There's all the customers are known. You're essentially just trying to solve problems. And it's like, what's the best way to solve a problem for your customer? Is it, if it's not buying our data, then we'll refer you to somebody else. We're happy to do it. So I don't think it's not competitive in the same way that people think.
Okay. Well, I mean, I see there's a lot of companies that have SAR, right? There's not.
Well,
What's that?
So, okay. So the question is like new companies with SAR. I'm not really seeing any new. I think that the winners have been made, right? It's been 9 years. Like there's 3 of us is like the kind of the new entrants. And I don't know how you would get funded trying to compete with 3 organizations that raised $1 billion. Like I don't know who would fund that. You would have to be a moron, especially when it's seemingly unclear on what is happening. So
Right.
there's not that. I mean, the industry is very, very small. Like maybe there's 5 or 6 constellations that aren't like Chinese or Russian because we don't count. You can't trust.
Well, that actually brings up a good question in my mind. Like, or do you worry about this was happening a little bit ago where there was rumors of Russians putting missiles in their satellite systems. Is that something to worry about? Is that an attack vector for them to take down Umbra satellites? Is that something you have insurance on? And like, how does that even work out?
I think the argument could be made it'd be much easier to screw up satellites from Earth than screwing them up from space. And
Okay.
if they're going after something, they're probably not going after us. Probably going after bigger, juicier targets. So that's the whole thing. Is like, if you look at what the US government's doing, they want a proliferated industrial base, which is like a lot of people building a lot of things for space. And then they want a disaggregated architecture, which is low cost, high quality sensors that are disaggregated. So you don't have all your eggs in one basket, essentially. Like if it costs $10 million to blow up an Umbra satellite, and an Umbra satellite costs a couple $1 million, like less than 10 million.
Right.
The bad guys lose. We'll just launch more.
What do they call that? Asymmetric warfare, right?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
Unfortunately, the United States is usually the ones that are spending millions of dollars to shoot down things that are thousands of dollars.
Right now,
or more likely, it's spending thousands of dollars to shoot down things that are useless and worthless. So what you mentioned some of these. You're saying everything's hard. Everything's hard, right? And that's good. If you had a magic wand though, and you could fix, 2 or 3 of these hard things and make them easier, what would be those top 3 things?
I think that it probably has to do with our ability to communicate. So like it is very hard to communicate what we are doing. Like people don't want to understand it. Like it is very hard to learn. And it's very hard to learn about something very complex. And we may be, as like many radar scientists is like, how do you not get it? Like, how do you not get the difference? Or how do you not understand the value?
Well, I'll say this, and and even I've used SAR for a long time. So my company still uses it. I don't totally understand it, and I'm sure like a smart scientist probably gets it right intuitively. But I would say in general, like the geospatial intelligence market, whatever you call the space market, we we don't have a. I think I just saw Neil deGrasse Tyson doing something with Sci-Fi, but we don't have like a really good spokesperson that can like articulate those things, like a scientist that can actually articulate what's important about XYZ technology within that geoint realm. Um, so I don't think that's necessarily everybody's fault, and I think people are interested. Like I'll give you an example. We have a team of analysts, and we do a lot of stuff with SAR. Sometimes it's like Sentinel. It's not necessarily like the high. We do use Umbra from time to time. Usually, it's funded through some type of government customer. If we're lucky, we get we get Umbra imagery, data, I should say. And there is a thirst there to learn more about it, but it is kind of like it seems complex, and there's like maybe a barrier to entry somewhere in there where these SAR scientists, maybe they should have a YouTube channel. Do they have a YouTube channel? How do we actually help people learn more about it so that we can proliferate the use cases, so that people can actually take advantage of it, so that the United States can stay ahead and in the talent pool game, and be ahead in that way. Like
So I was looking at scientific papers on radar.
Mhm.
The Chinese have released thousands of scientific papers on space-based radar. The United States has released, I think, 90.
Wow.
So that's a real problem. And our open data, I think, is another revolution, much like our licensing. So our open data is free. We're taking, I think, somewhere between 10 and 20 images per day of different locations, just so that people can use it. And they can use it, they can monetize it, they understand it. We do a lot of things like ports or farms or like all these different sectors. So essentially what we can do is go to a customer and be like, okay, you're looking at farms. Here's a bunch of free farm data. Monetize it. Demonstrate a use to your customer, and then buy the data. So I think that the key there.
But do they know how to do that? Like if I were to take what you said and bring it, like I'm next door to me, I have a team of imagery analysts. Right? I said monetize this. They wouldn't know how to do that.
Depends on what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, you have a very good point. It's like, look, are we going to have the SAR Education Center for Excellence? Gosh, I hope so. But I think
might
is like, if I put radar data in front of college students for free, we are 100 steps closer to widely proliferating knowledge. And I think our open data certainly is an option, right? Like you're providing optionality to the market that did not ever exist before. No one has ever gotten huge radar data sets for free from space. I remember when we first started, we bought a textbook with a CD-ROM that had a single sample image on it. Like from that to, I think we've released $4 million at our prices, which probably would be the equivalent of $40 million from like a prime, like an Airbus, is such a step forward that just did not exist before.
So if you're interested in synthetic aperture radar, you need to go to Umbra. Was it Umbra.space, right? Not to be confused with the other company that pops up when you Google Umbra.
Yes,
which is the Modern Home and Decor. Just to make sure, it's not Modern Home and Decor. It's definitely the one related to space and radar imagery. I mean, I just find what you're doing super interesting. It's launching something into space, and then there's a very small pool of people that really understand it at an in-depth level, like you're talking about. And from a business, as an entrepreneur myself and a business person, I'm thinking, man, that's risky. That's risky. What do you think are the biggest opportunities in there for you that maybe you guys haven't tapped into yet? Like what's next in the market space that you're like, oh, maybe that might be something,
So we
here in the
don't do
future.
any kind of analysis on our own data,
Hmm. Okay.
which is because we don't want to have a channel conflict with our customers. And
Sure.
we've seen this demonstrated by many providers who are like, oh, what are you looking at? Maybe I can make money from that. I think it's a very negative way to run a business. So the answer is like, what cool idea can an analytics company come up with, and how can we help them? And the way we can help them is an open license, free data. You need to start enabling your customers to make money themselves, rather than trying to steal from them, or we just, it is so important to be a positive player in the market where everyone is like, well, we like the Umbra guys. They're not going to screw us. I think that's the way all providers should do that.
And at that point, you're more of a partner with that analytics provider, because ultimately they're providing an answer to an end customer who's paying for it, right? And in turn, getting paid. So partnerships are a big area. Are there any other?
I mean, how would you ever have a successful business if your customers cannot trust you?
No, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It simply doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll take that back. Only in the government contracting space can you have zero trust and your business do just fine, because these contracts get awarded, they're fixed. You have something and it's immovable. Bob knows Fred at the office, and they went to junior high together, or they served in the military together, and that relationship's great, but the rest of the company is crap, so they're going to win anyways, right? I would say only in the government space is what you're saying not true, unfortunately. But for the rest of it,
so what you're saying is true, but everyone is tired.
Everyone
Congress is tired of it. The antibodies, everybody is just sick of it. And you're seeing the industry very, very slowly evolve. And there's a big announcement with Andrew winning that $1 billion jet contract.
Yeah,
it would have never happened 5 years ago. It would have never happened 2 years ago. Well, it didn't happen 2 years ago.
Well, also Boeing lost a big contract to Sierra Nevada to do the upfit the SecDef plane and a bunch of other aircraft, $13 billion contract. And Sierra Nevada, that's not a household name. Everybody knows Boeing, right? Yeah. But Sierra Nevada, that's interesting that they have that. And then Anduril popping up. Obviously, some of these other kind of new tech focused.
Just like not.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't want to criticize Boeing, but you're just not getting. How do you deliver the best value to the taxpayer? And clearly, it is not some of these organizations who are just like spending $1 trillion on a fighter jet that does not fly in the rain. Like, that doesn't make sense anymore.
Right.
And like I say, the free market solves all problems. Government is not the free market, and you have a lot of this like cronyism that maybe exists. But people are sick and tired of it because it's unfair, but now it's becoming dangerous. Like, it's becoming dangerous to the point where we need to evolve our military to the point to fight with gigantic nation states that don't have this. And maybe they have it, and their corruption is so efficient that they're able to move very fast.
Efficient corruption. Yeah.
But but these companies are capable. Like, every single prime, every single government person was like, dude, you're putting a hinge on an antenna? That's never going to work. Like, there's no way. Like, there's ratchets and it's going to move and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you have a hinge on a door. Like, what are you talking about? A hinge on an antenna is not a big, that's not a big lift. And then suddenly they're like, it's never going to work. We found a group of investors that said, hinge could probably work. Like, this is pretty asymmetrical bet. Like, the hinge works. Okay, the best thing since sliced bread. We'll take the bet. And
Why is that a big deal? The hinge on the antenna. Like, can you explain that? Like,
so we have an antenna that folds out. So
okay.
on the ride share, it's like looks like a little canister. And then so our launch cost is very, very low. Like probably can't quote it, but it's like
sure,
not more than $1 million. So then it goes up. And so the whole thing is we're competing with these large legacy satellites that are gigantic. And our antenna deploys to at like 3.8 meters. I think it's the ones that we have in space are probably 3.8 or 4 meters. And so they're huge. And if they're circular, it's R squared. So we have the same surface area of like a school bus.
Okay.
And that allows us to, like, when we send an impulse down, it bounces off Earth, and then we have a really, really big way to receive it, which is why our data is so crisp relative to anybody else's.
So is the hinge it just allows that expansion? Is that kind of?
It's like almost like a closed flower and then an open flower.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Does not seem like makes sense. Does not seem like a big innovation. But 9 years ago,
did you patent the hinge?
We did.
See, it is a big innovation. Yeah, as long as you got a patent there.
First patent on something like that in like 20 years.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
So, we talked about some of the. Man, I feel like we could probably sit here all day and just talk about what's happening in the government and this. Are they Umbra's largest customer, the U.S. government? I mean, I just make an assumption, but is that the case?
The U.S. government is a large part of our business.
Got it.
Very large part.
Well, it is what it is.
But it's a special relationship.
Right.
I mean, I think that other companies probably don't have that. But for us, it is a really, really, we did it, Dave and I, look, I have a come and take it thing on my wall. Like, and I'm putting a big American flag next to it. So, like, we are patriots. We love this country. And we want to deliver value to the country. And look, the government is, in many cases, not the easiest customer. And in some cases, the best customer.
Right.
And we want to support them. And I believe they want to support us.
Are there any other SAR companies that are US based?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I wasn't tracking. You don't need to name drop. It's okay. They're not here, so you don't have to name drop them. Okay. Very, very good. I wasn't sure. I thought you guys were maybe the only one. I know a lot of the SAR companies are foreign.
Vast majority.
Or maybe. Yeah.
There's only 2 in the United States.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're right. That's not a big pool to compete with. Are you guys always going to stick with SAR, or are there other technologies that are like, maybe we should launch some other type of sensor, or SIGINT sensor or whatever? Like, is there anything there, or are you guys always strictly going to focus on what SAR is providing, or are there other things you could maybe throw on the same? And I'm talking about this like an idiot. I don't know anything about satellites. Is there any other sensors that you could throw on there that maybe empower SAR to be better, enable SAR to be more useful to that, guy tracking chicken eggs or whatever?
So this goes to your first question. Did I think that whatever, as a kid, want to be the founder of a synthetic aperture radar company? The answer is no.
Right.
But what is true is that we will do anything that produces the same profit margin as our radar business. And so we've looked at other stuff. And it is not to say that we wouldn't do something else, but like I refuse to have a business that is not profitable. I'm not doing it. There's a lot of these satellite providers are publicly traded. I read their P&Ls. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it to my family. Like, I'm not doing it. So if we do something, or if we pursue like mission solutions, let's say, where like we have one mission solutions contracts, one that is publicly known as like the DARPA contract, where we have satellites that are flying in concert with one another. That does all kinds of. If you have satellites that fly close to one another, you can do a lot of really fun things. We will,
especially SAR, right? Because you can bounce the way things bounce off.
all kinds of things. It's very good.
Gotcha.
Because it is
okay.
It's not a negative.
Are they swapping selfies? Is that what you're saying? Look at this satellite. Okay,
maybe.
I see what you guys are all about there.
Yes, it's selfie. It's a big selfie business. The TAM on selfies.
Right.
So yeah, we'll pursue anything that makes money.
Okay.
That makes sense. So our mission solutions business, where we're doing specific like missions or constellations for allied governments or our own government, is a growing part of the business. I don't know, but yeah, we're not going to pursue something haphazardly. Everything that we have ever done has been extremely deliberate, and it's been deliberate because previously we're capital constrained. So it's like we didn't have the money so we launched our first 2 satellites only having raised $12 million to build them. Like that is not a lot of money in this industry.
Right.
So we had to come up with innovations that allowed us to like generate large amounts of revenue. Like just because we make money now and just because we have access to more capital doesn't mean that we're not going to behave as scrappy as possible. You gotta scrap. And if you solve problems with money and not technology, you will lose. You will not have a business because somebody else will do it. Like I said, it's hard. Like typically the right path is the hardest path.
Right.
And like as time goes on, like it just starts being easy. Like, man, maybe we'll just buy these parts and not have to invent anything.
Right.
We have a lead and like maybe we just continue doing it, and that's not acceptable. We have to be 10 times better every single year, every single part of the business, down from the people to the satellite systems. We do not have a choice.
And that's a good lesson for almost any business or any human, really. Like if it's easy, it's probably not the right it's not the right choice for you, especially for
that goes into a broken part of the system. Investors do not invest in startups. Investors, their main purpose is to raise funds. And the way that they raise new funds is our internal rate of return. So you have now, if you take anybody else's money, you have somebody on your cap table whose incentive is to have a high IRR.
Sure.
The fastest way to get a high IRR is to, in space, get to space, take the first image, get a new round, IPO, whatever, as quickly as possible. The quickest way to do something is to buy it. Like it is way harder. Like essentially the 3 like new entrants all started at the same time. All 3 of us had the same idea at the same time. We were the last to get to space because we took a much, much harder path. We had to invent stuff that hadn't been invented. We had to patent stuff. We had significant capital constraints. But I think ultimately has turned out well because, I mean, the common represents a large portion of the shareholder group. I think it's done in terms of like healthiness of a company. I think we're by far the healthiest. But it's been way harder. I would not recommend it.
Well, you're out there in Austin, Texas, which is actually, kind of an emerging space market, I guess you could say. It's come out of nowhere, I guess you could say. Houston was always the space city, right? What changes have there been in maybe with some of the stuff that Elon Musk is doing with the reusable rockets? Like, are there things that are reducing these costs? Like you mentioned, it's about $1 million. I'm sure that used to cost a lot more to hitch a ride to space. Are you seeing some of those costs go down on those types of things now that you have at least SpaceX, but then Isn't Blue Origin working on kind of the same thing? I don't know if they're feasible yet or where they're at, but are those costs going down? And then are you able to take advantage of that to help? Like you mentioned, you're all about profit and margin, So I'm thinking about how do we reduce costs? Where do those cost savings come in?
So on SpaceX, if you go to their website, to launch 150 kilograms costs $1 million.
Okay.
When we started, maybe it cost like $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
The Starship, to launch our satellite, it would cost $1,200.
No way. That's insane. That's wild. Holy moly, that's huge. See that? I mean, that's an interesting. I can't even fathom that.
This is what I mean by, like, if you are not innovating and you are not staying in the cutting edge, you are not scared, you will fail. Like,
well, in your instance, you get to kind of ride this wave of innovation that's happening in rocketry, right? I mean, you guys aren't building rockets; you're building satellites, which help will reduce your costs. Sounds like significantly, but wouldn't that also create or lower the barrier to entry to do what you're doing? And then, what are you doing to prepare for that? Because it sounds like, obviously there's still a ways to go before that's a viable rocket. They're probably getting pretty close.
I wouldn't bet against them.
No, you won't catch me betting against them at all. There will be a flood of new companies getting into the game. If that's the cost, I mean, $1,200. I mean, that's peanuts. So now it's the focus turns, instead of the launch cost, the focus, and I'm just guessing here, the focus becomes making that satellite as good as humanly possible. Maybe getting more satellites up faster. Getting rid of some of the old crap and just getting the newest, hottest, latest stuff in there. Like, you tell me, like, how are you thinking through that?
Well, I mean, I'd turn around in some ways. Like, I wouldn't compete against a company with the best technology and essentially unlimited resources whose costs are going down, and then start from the beginning. Like, I don't know that SAR is going to turn into this, like, even optical hasn't turned into this, like, huge thing with like 100 companies. I mean, SAR specifically is fairly niche, but what this lower barrier to entry does is creates far more opportunities for me than it does for anyone else. Because we have an abundance of resources. There's a lot in the culture where you have founders who still run the company with a lot of equity. So you have other companies where either the founders are gone or they've matured past it, or the founder equity is so low that it's like they're just like, fine, just trying to get through it. When you have that, my behavior is not like some hired CEO. David's behavior is not like some hired CEO. Like, this is our company. Like, we are very, like, we force innovation. Like, David is still driving brilliant designs. And now he's gone from highly competent genius to totally lethal, because now he has unlimited resources and knowledge. So yes, a lower barrier to entry is good generally for the market, generally for everything, for the entire ecosystem. It means that you can deploy and test products much faster. It allows larger companies to adopt new products much faster. But I don't see building and launching a SAR constellation as something that anyone would want to do.
They might not want to do it, but I think even in this podcast right here, you have said that there's only 2 SAR companies in the United States. I mean, it's just going to happen, right? Like, there will be more SAR companies. People are motivated by money, and we talked about the federal government corruption, I guarantee you there's going to be people with connections and a few dollars in their pocket, and they're going to want to launch these new companies. Now, you said you're innovating, you have the resources, you're pushing. I'm just trying to be realistic about, there is an opening in the market. If you're saying there's only 2 companies in the United States, there will be more. I mean, there has to be. There's no choice. That's the free market, right? It's going to proliferate if the cost is that cheap, $1,200. I mean, anybody can afford that.
I heard the same thing at 2.5 million. I heard the same thing at $1 million.
Huh.
Still only 2. I think that it's maybe other people are smarter than us and just like.
But there's a big difference between $1 million, right? $1 million, even still, to the average person seems still a problem.
So no. So like the cost when we started to launch any satellite before rideshare was like $100 million.
Yeah,
so
insane.
You drop the price by 99%. And again, they're going to drop the price by 99%. I'm not saying that there isn't more opportunity or a lower barrier to entry. What I'm saying is that it's going to be nearly impossible to be competitive with like all the best people working at the same company. So like, yes, there'll be new stuff, but it'll be more niche. I don't see it as like a direct competitor. And that's what I said earlier is like, when I said the other CEO, we're winning things together. Like it's not winner take
for now. Now,
we'll see.
Yeah, I know, and who knows? Hopefully I hope they keep buying more data because we certainly love to use it.
We will. I mean,
and hopefully the market does continue to expand, and that helps.
I've watched the government. I've watched the market like the. I have a pretty good sense of the revenue of all the companies. It's going up for everybody. Like the rising tide is rising everybody up. It is great. So I don't know that a new entrant who has a new product that gets people interested in radar, that whatever, maybe their product does time travel or I don't know, whatever it is. Just time travel is
Well, time travel would be good.
Yeah.
They might go find Gabe and 12-year-old Gabe and take care of him,
Right.
But you also have at that cost too, you might have companies that are already in space and have other systems say, oh, well, maybe it's so cheap to launch now. Maybe we just focus on building out more sensor types, getting more of those up, like all the big names in the space. So
yeah, I think is very attractive. I don't think that expanding the market is going to in any way be negative for us, especially when we continually have had the best product, best service, and lowest cost. Like if that's something, so if this lower barrier to entry is something that somebody with no resources can take advantage of, it's something that somebody with tremendous resources also can take advantage of.
Sure.
And I wouldn't want to, other than somebody's like life, I wouldn't want to discourage somebody from not starting a SAR company.
But only do it if you're prepared, because it's very difficult.
Very hard.
It's very hard, and it's probably soul sucking at times, and late nights and all that good stuff. Well, very good, very good. So, how do people find Umbra? And what would you like everyone to know about what you guys are doing besides all the cool stuff you've already told us about?
So you can find us at umbraspace.com or umbra.space. We're active on Twitter. We're releasing a lot of really cool imagery every day on Twitter. I have a Twitter that I sometimes use, but if I do use it, I'm very helpful. But I think that is my last name. It's @ my last name. But I think the main takeaway is that Umbra would not exist if it wasn't for our customers. Like, we are a customer-driven company. We want to make sure that our customers get the best products at the lowest prices, even if it's not from us. We're here to make sure that like the people in the industry, people like you, can make a lot of money, like provide great lives to their families. And we're not going to be successful unless you're successful, Nate.
Well, very good. Well, I'm all about it. I'll definitely task an Umbra satellite here very soon. It's like, and we love using Umbra when we get a chance to use it. So I really appreciate your time and coming on and chat about what you guys are doing. And hopefully we'll see you around in Orlando, maybe,
Yeah, we'll
and
have a
in
big
other
team in
places.
Orlando. I don't go to Orlando, but
Okay, all right. Well,
I
you
did all
should
the
because
I've done more geoints than I.
I got you. I got you. It's all good. Well, very good. Make sure you check out. We'll put links in the description to connect with Umbra, and maybe you should order your own satellite imagery
Yeah, and then you
data.
can also get
I
us
should say.
on Sky-Fi if you want a really easy way to get an image once
Hmm.
you choose.
Yep.
And we have our
Yep.
entire free archive is on Sky-Fi and on our website.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, appreciate it, Gabe.